Welcome to the new session on basics of networking, or called networking basics. Today we are going to learn about the very fundamental things or very basic components and things like how to set up a network, what are the components of a network, what is a network, and its benefits and uses. So let's get to see what we have today, the topics for the discussion. So these are the topics that we will be learning in this session about what is a network, the various types of networks or different types of networks, and their uses. So how about looking at what is a network? So we have various types of networks. Today the whole world runs on networks, meaning from the day we start our work we have to use the various types of networks. Like for example, internet is the best example we could look at. So internet is one of the world's biggest network. So what is a network? Why we need a network? What are the components to set up a network? So the networks play a very important role in our day-to-day life. So what is a network? Let's start with the definition of what a network is. So what is a network? In a simple way, connecting two or more computers to a switch or a hub is called as a network. So that's a simple way to define a network. Connecting two or more computers or laptops or servers, could be any other network device. So there are different types of devices that we use in the network. Most commonly used devices are PCs, computers, servers, printers, smartphones, tablets are also the devices that are part of the network. So we call these kinds of devices as end devices. Basically, to set up a network we would require different kinds of components, and those different components that are used to set up a network are: number 1, end devices, number 2, media, and number 3, these networking devices. There is a big difference between the end devices and the networking devices. So end devices are very commonly used devices like computers, laptops, smartphones, tabs, servers. These are all the devices that come under this category of end devices. They are basically used for data transfer, storing the data, computational purposes. We store files in computers, in servers. We also use them to process some information. Suppose you want to access some web page. So we use a device. It could be PC, or it could be a smartphone, or it could be a tab. So when we use these devices, we need some applications. So these computers and laptops and smartphones, they have an operating system of their own, and on top of this operating system we have various applications. These applications help the users to access the various resources, and they help us to communicate. So let's take this example. You want to access a website. To access a website we require a end device. Like for example, here we see personal computers and laptops. These are the examples of end devices. Servers. Basically these servers store the web pages or some databases or some other files, maybe video files or audio files. They are all stored in the servers, so that the users from various parts of the internet can have access to them. They are also most common in organizations. Within the organization we also have networks purely for our office utilizations, and there are also other network devices like we see here, network printers. Suppose there is a big company of 100 employees. The company cannot afford to provide 100 printers for all these employees. So we have a network printer which can be shared by a group of people. It could be 10, 20 people or 30, 40 people can share one single printer. So that also will be part of the network. So that's why it's called as network printer. So today most of us smartphones are too small in size, so we use tablets. Tablet is like a mini sized personal computer or mini sized laptop. So these tablet and smartphones, so all these 5 different devices form a component called end devices. These end devices are used to store information. This storing information could be in form of data, files, Word file, Excel file or PowerPoint file, and images could be photographs, family photos or friends photos, etc., etc. And videos, it could be of some movie or it could be any other video format, or it could be plain audio files, it could be some music or some recorded voice, So these are the various types of information that are stored in these end devices, and it's not just for storing purpose alone. We also use these end devices to process information and also for computational purposes. So end devices are very essential. They could be used either individually for without the network communication, as well as also for basic network communication. So within these end devices, all these end devices have their own operating system, whether be it Windows operating system. Windows operating system is again further divided into desktop operating system and server operating system. And desktop operating system is the one which is used on the personal computers, on the laptops. These are the devices that use the basic operating system, desktop operating system. And a server operating system is the one which is used on high-end servers, which is normally like web server, like email server or database server or FTP server. So server operating system has capability to be able to share information with hundreds of devices, whereas desktop operating system is for a single use, for a single person to use the device and resources, whereas server can offer services in terms of the ones which we have discussed, computation, storage and processing for multiple requests, multiple users. Let's take this example. Some of you want to access some web page, let's say for example www.zoomgroup.com. So you want to access that web page. So when you access this web page, you are not the only person accessing this web page. There may be hundreds of thousands of people across the globe trying to access the same web page. So the server operating system ensures that the requests are served because it has the capability to perform this task. But the question is, how does a single user sitting in one part of the world is able to access the server which is in some other part of the world? So that's where the network comes into play, the internet comes into play, the intranet comes into play. So these types of networks help organizations to ensure they have the better productivity, they have better facilities that they offer to the users and organizations. So today, with the help of internet, we see how many benefits we have, how much of information that is being shared across the internet. You have every information that you want in your fingertips. On your smartphone, you have everything that is available. It could be about news, it could be about weather, it could be about education, it could be about searching for information. So you have everything. If in case of the entertainment, you have live entertainment available. You can watch movies online. You also have the access to do transactions, internet banking, so you don't have to travel to the bank. So you have internet on your phone, on your smartphone as well. You can access the bank services, transact, like you want to transfer the amount, you want to, withdrawing the amount requires you to physically travel to the ATM or to the bank, but even that is being done with the help of a network. So if you walk into an ATM to withdraw the money, so you can see that you have to do a transaction, and that transaction requires network connectivity. So there's a computer inside the ATM which is trying to connect to the server which is in the bank, and then it will validate your user account, get your password verified, and then allow you to do the transaction. So we have so many examples, and all these examples require the network. So without the network, we cannot have any services running today. So we have just seen the concept of end devices. These end devices are the most important components of a network. So they are the ones which the user will interact with. So if you want to open a browser, so we need a computer. It could be a laptop, it could be a PC. And when you open the web page is served by a server. So the server, the end device are very important for the network communication. The second important component to build a network is the media. So media plays an important role to provide connectivity between the end user and the server. The end user may be in one part of the network and the server is in another part of the network. So for the client to access the server, we require the media. So the media can be defined into two different categories called wired media, where we use the physical wire to connect between the PC and the switch, as well as from the server to the switch. This is the physical connectivity, wired media. We also call cables. We use different types of cables, that is copper cable, like we say it's Cat5 or Cat6, Cat5e, or the different types of copper cables. Then we have the fiber. The second category is the fiber cables. So these have very high bandwidth to handle. They can transfer gigabytes of bandwidth. They have the capacity to send and receive high amounts of data in terms of gigabits and terabytes. And the third category of cable is the coaxial cable. This coaxial cable was once upon a time, like let's say in the 80s, 1980s and 1990s, this was popular, but today this is outdated. Coaxial cable is no longer used for the purpose of data transfer. We only use either copper or fiber as the physical media or wired media for data transfer. So under copper, there was a lot of evolution that happened, right, from Cat3, Cat4, Cat5, and currently the standard is Cat6. So Cat6 cable offers speeds up to 1 gigabits per second. Cat5 can offer only up to 100 Mbps per second. So fibers again come under two categories. Under the fiber category, we have two subcategories called single mode fiber and multimode fiber. Single mode fiber is used for long distance transmission of data. For example, you want to send data, let's say from Hyderabad to Chennai, or let's say from Hyderabad to Mumbai, or from Hyderabad to Delhi. So these places are hundreds of kilometers away. So to drive the signal from Hyderabad to such a long distance, we have a fiber which supports long distance, and that is the single mode fiber. The single mode fiber uses laser technology, and it has the capability to run up to, let's say, 100 to 120 kilometers distance. And at that end, we have to have a repeater to regenerate the signal to send this data to another 100 kilometers. So the range of single mode can be approximately around 100 to 120 kilometers. So this is very widely used between cities which are far away. And the second type of fiber cable that we discussed is multi-mode fiber. The multi-mode fiber has a capability for short distances, let's say 500 meters, 1000 meters, or 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, up to 5 kilometers or so. We can make use of this multi-mode fiber within the building, like from one floor to another floor. We want to have a high speed connectivity, we would use the multi-mode fiber. So copper supports up to 1 Gbps and has a limited distance. It can support only up to a maximum of 100 meters. Copper Cat5, Cat6 has a capability to support only up to 100 meters distance, whereas the fiber has capability for long distance We have two modes of fiber, that is multimode fiber for short distances, maybe within the building, or let's say we have two buildings very close to each other, 100, 200 meters, 300 meters, we can use the multimode fiber. But for long distances from city to city, etc., we use the single mode fiber which supports long distances. And discussed as the coaxial cable, it was once upon a time used. It has lot of drawbacks when compared with the copper and fiber. So it is no longer used for data communication. But just to touch upon this subject of using coaxial cable for data communication, it is supporting a maximum speeds of up to 10 Mbps, number one. Number two, it cannot allow multiple users to send and receive data. So it will be an issue when multiple devices send data, there will be collisions. So it's better to use the copper and fiber which supports a very higher bandwidth and also supports long distances. So these are the benefits of this copper and fiber cable. And another type of media that is available for data communication is wireless. And today we use wireless so much that in fact when you are at home or in office, you use the mobile phone, so we are using the wireless data. So not only for internal communication within the office, but wireless can be used from one building to another building. Sometimes it can run few kilometers also. So wired media has cables like copper, fiber and coaxial cables, and under wireless we use most widely used wireless technology is radio frequency, RF. We use the RF for the Wi-Fi at home, at office, as well as for building to building connectivity also we use the wireless technology. So under the media we have these two categories called wired and wireless. So to connect the end devices into the network, we have to use either wired cabling or through wireless cabling. This is very, very important. Without connecting the end device like PC or server or printer to the network, we cannot have communication established. So basic network communication requires communication between the PC and the network device. So the network devices, the next category that we are going to discuss is the network devices or networking devices. So before we go to discuss about the different types of this thing, we have different categories of networks. Local area network, LAN. This is the most common and very widely used among all the users at home or at office. So at home, if you have an internet connection, this internet connection is shared by all the family members, and that becomes a small local area network. When you walk into your bank, you see a lot of officers working, and that's one local area network. So you go to a college and you have a computer lab, and all these computers in the computer lab are interconnected with the help of a local area network. So local area network is the most common one in all the small organizations as well as in the large organizations. Then we have the second type of network called Metropolitan Area Network or MAN. So the MAN helps an organization having multiple offices within the same city. The Metropolitan Area Network helps organizations which have multiple offices within the same city to communicate with each other. Let us take an example of a bank. A bank may be named XYZ. A bank XYZ has branches in the same city but in different areas. So to establish connection between these different offices or the branches within the same city, we set up a Metropolitan Area Network. So the local area network in one branch can communicate with local area network in another branch within the same city with the help of Metropolitan Area Network. So interconnecting the local area networks within the same city is called as a MAN. So let us now take a small example of how to set up a small network. So here I am going to show you a small network, how to set up a small network with the help of this paint. So, let us consider this is a device and we call it a switch. And we are going to discuss about what this device does in a short while. And these are the computers, and just for representation purpose. And we need to connect this to the switch. So, to set up one small network, a local area network, we require these three components. What are these components? One is the computers. So, say PC1, we can reduce the size, so it becomes easy to PC1, and this is PC2, and this is PC3. So, we want to establish communication between these three computers. Okay. So, this is the media, the one which we are representing here. This is the media. We help the PC to connect to the network with the help of media. So, this media is copper wire. So, we may be using Cat5 cable or Cat6 cable. So, to set up a network, we require end devices like PCs or servers. 2, we require the media. We briefly discussed about the types of media, and then we require a networking device called switch. So, we now go to the next discussion of the third type of network called WAN, wide area network. Wide area network provides connectivity from a local area network in one city to another local area network in another city or another country. So, these three are the different types of networks: local area network within the office, metropolitan area network connecting multiple offices within the same city, and wide area network connecting offices in different cities or different countries. So, this is about the different types of networks. And then we have the third component, that is the networking devices. So, if you see this picture, we have this networking device called switch. So, switch comes under the category called networking devices. So, networking devices under the networking devices, we have 1 switch, 2 router, 3 access point, 4 firewall. So, these are the various components that come under the category called networking devices. So, they help us to set up networks. Networking devices are key devices that allow the network to communicate. So, let us look at another example of how this local area network, this is called as local area network, this is called as LAN. This is one local area network. Suppose we have a similar LAN, let us say we make a small copy of this. So, we have another network. Let us say these two networks are in different places of the same city, and if you want to establish connection between these two networks, we want to establish the connection between this LAN and this LAN. So, this is called as metropolitan area network. So, to set up a connection between two local area networks, we call this as MAN. This is called as MAN, connecting two different networks within the same city. But let us suppose if we have different places in different cities, so we call that as wide area network. So if you have to connect offices between different cities, we call that as wide area network. So local area network is within the office, metropolitan area network is connecting offices within the same city, and wide area network is connecting offices in different cities or different countries. So we can give the example of wide area network as internet, or let us say internet is the best example for wide area network. So internet we use every day, so we are using the wide area network which connects all the users across the globe. Okay. So next we have in our discussion the various uses of network. Under the various uses of network, we have been discussing in this examples also, they provide productivity for businesses. They provide productivity for businesses. So let us take an example of a university. So if university wants to conduct some entrance exam for intake of the students for the various courses, so what they do, they publish this information on the university website. So people from all across the world can have access to that information. So they can access the university website, get to know what are the various programs available, what are the various bachelor's courses available, master's courses available, research courses available. So we have a list of various programs that the university is offering and how to enroll into this courses, various courses. From the website you get all the information. So basically it is a productivity. It's enhancing the university's programs to be available for various users across the globe. So the users can in fact make a preliminary inquiry through email and communicate with the staff of the university, and they can also make applications online. So the universities today have developed applications so that the users who are interested to join that particular courses can fill the application form online and submit it, and then wait for the confirmation of the admission. So once we have the confirmation of the admission from the college, you have to pay the fees, and you can pay that online as well. So today there are certain universities offering these programs online as well, so which means you don't have to physically travel to the college, travel to the university. So you can run these various programs with the help of internet. So these are some of the examples that we can look at, and the other examples that we use internet for or network for are examples of a bank. So you can see the banks works only on networks. Today without network there is no way you can send and receive the money, the transactions. So banks backbone, the main backbone for the banks is through networks. Within the branch they use local area network, and when they have to connect the local bank to the headquarters or to the other regions, so the banks also have to follow certain guidelines set by the central bank. So they have a governing body, so they ensure that all the guidelines are set into place, but the basic communication happens through the bank. But banks set up their own network because the bank's data is confidential, so they ensure that there is confidentiality for the data that is exchanged between the branches of the bank, and communication from ATM to the bank, all these are taken care of, but the backbone is the network. So in this session on the basics of networking or networking basics, we have come across the various components that are used to set up a network, and they are categorized into three types, that is end devices, that are personal computers, servers, network printers, and the tabs and the smartphones form the end devices. And the second category we have the media, the media playing an important role for establishing the connectivity between these end devices and servers to a centralized device called networking devices, and these networking devices help facilitate communication between these end devices. So, all the three components make up a simple network, and under this network we had discussed about the basics of networking like LAN, local area network, and metropolitan area network, and wide area network. So, this is the very important components that we have discussed about networking, basics of networking. So, let us quickly review that what we have done in this session. So, these are the concepts that we have learnt, that is what is a network. We have seen the definition of a network, that is interconnection of two or more end devices is called as a network, and network helps communicate within the local area network or metropolitan area network or wide area network. And to set up this network, we had the three different components, that is end devices, the media, and networking devices. Under media, we have discussed about the copper cable, which is very widely used in the local area network, and the fiber cable, which is used both for local area network, for metropolitan area network, as well as for the wide area network, and then wireless communication. So, wireless communication helps for ease of use. So, in the case of local area network, we have two types of local area networks, that is wired local area network with the help of copper cable or fiber cable, or we have wireless local area network. With local area networks of using wireless, there is a drawback, that is you cannot get very high bandwidth, number one. Number two, you have a limitation of distance. There is a device which provides this wireless communication, that is access point. So, the access points have limited range, and they have the restrictions like if you have the building, in the building you have glass doors or walls. So, the limitation will be very less, the distance cannot be supported too long as the wired cable can provide. With wired cable, you have to be stationary in one place. Suppose you have a connection connected to your PC or laptop, you cannot move around with the help of the cable, but if it is wireless, you have the facility to move around. You can, it's flexible, you can walk into the corridor, you can be walking in the place. If it's in the house, you have Wi-Fi, you have the flexibility to move around and still be connected to the network. That's the advantage of wireless communication, which is not available with the wired communication. With wired communication, you have to sit in one place to use the wired connectivity. But the advantage of wired connectivity is that it has a very high bandwidth. So, end devices like PCs, laptops, we can have Wi-Fi, but not with the help of, not with for servers or not for network printers. So, for network printers and for servers, which are very huge in size, the equipment are very huge in size. So, they cannot be having very high bandwidth. So, we have to go with physical connectivity, but there are certain printers which are available with Wi-Fi connectivity. So, you do not have to have a physical cable connected, but it cannot be mobile like we have the laptop or smartphone. They provide a lot of flexibility. Wireless provides a lot of flexibility, whereas wired connectivity provides very high bandwidth. You can have high-end servers have a fiber optic cable connected directly to the server, and then it can provide up to 10 Gbps of bandwidth. So, because there are hundreds of thousands of users access these servers, so they are preferred to have the wired connectivity, and this wired connectivity provides very high bandwidth. And they are also very immune to types of interferences. But whereas Wi-Fi is immune to interferences. Sometimes you have very low signal and you get very low bandwidth. Sometimes when the signal is good, then you have very high bandwidth that is available. So, in the basics of networking, we have to know about the various components that are used to set up the network. Like we have seen in this picture, we have these components, end devices, PCs and servers and printers come here in the part of the end devices, and the second one is the media. It could be copper or fiber. And then the networking devices, you can see these various networking devices. And in the next session, when we discuss about the advanced concepts of networking, we will be discussing about the functions of these equipment and learn more in detail about how this communication actually happens, because we are just showing the physical connectivity, but just having a physical connectivity is not enough for us to send and receive data. So we will have an advanced topic where we will be discussing about the actual flow of information. So when you request a web page from the browser, and how this information goes out of your computer, how it travels to reach the server, physical server, and then how the reply will come back to you, all this will be discussed in the advanced session about networking. So we have to understand that all these three components set up a network, basics of network. So without any one of these components, it is not easy to communicate. So now let us add a small wireless component to this. I'm going to add a wireless access point to this existing network. So let's suppose this is a wireless access point, and it should have an antenna. So we will keep an antenna here. So wireless access point should have an antenna, and it has an antenna now, and that should be connected to the existing switch. So the wireless access point, it should be connected to the existing switch. Now it allows, let's say, laptop user or a smartphone user. So let's say these are all the smartphones or tabs. So with the help of Wi-Fi, these tabs can now get internet access. So these are, let's say, these are the wireless devices, and these wireless devices, with the help of access point, let me mark it. So this is an access point. So access point helps the wireless devices to communicate with each other. So whether it is in the LAN or whether it is in the home, we have to use these wireless access points for wireless communication. So in the next session, when we discuss about the advanced networking concepts, we will go in detail and have a look at the various components like switch, its functions, router, its functions, access point, its functions, and firewall and its functions as well. So we have to look at the quick overview of this session, that is network, different types of end devices that are part of the network. Then we have the media, different types of media which helps connect the various devices, and then we have the different types of networks, local area network, metropolitan area network, and wide area network, and how they are used, where they are used, and the components required to set up these. We have seen this in the networking devices and their advantages of the benefits that the companies get out of using the networks. Intranet and intranet are the best examples of how organizations benefit. So a bank network is considered as an intranet. All the banks across the country are interconnected, and we call that as intranet, and nobody from outside can access this network. It's exclusive for the bank. Similarly, there are a lot of government networks like Indian Railway network. So that's exclusively used for the railway employees and railway staff. And under railway network, we have, for example, you want to buy a ticket. So they have a separate network for tickets. We call that as passenger reservation network, PRS. And then we have a different network for administrative purposes. So these are all exclusive to that organization. So similarly, if you look at a state government network, so state government has connectivity to all the districts, to the collector offices, to the various MRO offices. So all these government offices are also interconnected. They are mostly using it for video conferencing. The government officials communicate from the headquarters, from the capital city to all the districts, and keep monitoring various activity. So they are already using these kinds of networks for the benefit of the users. And the organizations, like apart from banks, we have industries. So they all use between the factory and the offices, marketing offices, they connect via this intranet. But the public face of this is the internet, which all of us have access to. With the help of internet, we are able to get information, news, entertainment, banking, business. So you have every activity that is available on the internet, and that's one of the world's biggest network we have discussed earlier. And this network is built based on this concept of the end devices, and these are the components that are part of the internet as well. So we have seen the end devices could be PCs or servers or laptops, and to connect to internet we are using either through cable connected by the ISP, or it could be via your mobile phone, like you are using 4G internet. So that is also coming under the wireless media. And then the networking devices, you have a small device at home, we call that as a router, which comes under the category called networking device. And all the ISPs do have this networking equipment which facilitates the communication from your home to the actual destination with the help of these networking devices. So they form a network only with the help of these three components. Though we have discussed about the various kinds of devices under this category, under end devices, under media, we have discussed wireless, under wired we have discussed about fiber and copper, and different types of copper like Cat5, Cat6, Cat5e, and also under fiber we have discussed about the multimode fiber and single mode fiber, providing very high bandwidth for long distances. And networking devices, within a LAN we must have a networking device called switch, which is mandatory, and to connect from one local area network to another local area network, like for example in the case of a wide area network, we must have a router. But at the same time, if you want to protect your network or secure your network from unauthorized access or from internet threats, we have the networking called firewall, which provides security. So all these end devices, media and networking devices help us to establish a network which is very useful for the organizations and also benefit users for basic productivity purposes, information gathering, exchanging, sharing information, real-time communication. You want to speak with your family or you want to see them who are not physically in your place. We are using video chat, we are using voice communication, we are using Skype, we are using WhatsApp video calling or voice calling. So all these are able to achieve because of the network. So without network, our life would not be the same what it is today, and this network helps to establish better productivity for the organizations as well as for the end users. So without a network, it is not possible to have this thing. So later in the next session we will be discussing about the advanced concepts of networking and the functions of these various networking devices. Thank you.